For many centuries, people have thought of Jesus as someone who belongs only to Christianity. He has been seen as part of a religious system, worshipped according to specific traditions, and treated as the foundation of a structured faith. But the truth is, Jesus does not belong to just one religion. He is not meant to be controlled by religious rules or limited by church teachings. Jesus is much bigger than that. He is a universal presence, a living example of divine love, and a spiritual truth that cannot be confined to human-made institutions. If we only see Jesus as a religious figure tied to a particular faith, we miss out on his true significance. His teachings were not meant to separate people into groups, believers and non-believers. He did not come to start a church or to create religious laws. Instead, he came to show people a better way to live, a way rooted in love, truth, and unity. He came to teach that love is greater than fear, that people are not truly separate from one another, and that living in alignment with divine love brings true freedom. Jesus did not ask to be worshipped. He asked people to follow his example. Some people believe that Jesus is only for Christians, but this idea comes from humans, not from Jesus himself. No one owns Jesus, just like no one owns the sun, the wind, or the ocean. His teachings and his presence are for all people, no matter where they come from or what they believe. He is not a religious leader who must be accepted or rejected based on a person's faith. He is a presence, a way of living, a consciousness that anyone can experience if they are open to love. A Course in Miracles describes Jesus as an elder brother, someone who fully awakened to the truth of love. He was not different from other people in his essence, but he let go of everything that was not real. He removed judgment, attachment, fear, and anger. He allowed himself to be pure love. This is what made him different. Not because he was made of something greater than us, but because he surrendered completely to love. Jesus' life was not meant to be idolized, but to show us what is possible for all people. His message was never about making himself the center of attention. Instead, he invited others to live as he lived, to choose love over fear, to practice forgiveness, and to see the divine presence in everything. He asked people to follow him, not just by saying his name, but by thinking as he thought, loving as he loved, and forgiving as he forgave. To truly follow Jesus is not about religious rituals. It is about choosing love every single day. Religious institutions have often placed Jesus so high that people feel they can never reach his level. They have made him seem distant, someone far above human experience. But the truth is, Jesus did not come to prove his own greatness. He came to show what is possible for all of us. He was not an exception. He was the example. He demonstrated what happens when a person fully surrenders to divine love. When we see Jesus as a universal force instead of just a religious figure, we are set free from the limits of religious teachings. His message was never about power or control. It was always about love, healing, and awakening. He welcomed everyone, regardless of their background, their sins, or their mistakes. He looked at people and saw only love. He saw beyond guilt, beyond fear, beyond the illusions of the world. Seeing the world as Jesus saw it is not just an act of kindness, it is an act of power. It is the ability to remove illusions, to see beyond appearances, and to recognize the divine in everyone. The real miracle is not supernatural events, but the ability to see through the eyes of love. to live without judgment, without fear, and without division. The resurrection of Jesus is not just a historical event. It represents a transformation in the human mind. Every time a person chooses love over fear, chooses to forgive rather than hold a grudge, or chooses unity instead of division, that is a resurrection. It is the Christ rising within. It is the realization that love is the only true reality. Jesus does not require people to believe in him to exist. He does not need faith or acknowledgement. His presence does not depend on what people think about him. He simply is. He is always here, available to anyone who is ready to open their heart. He is a guide, a light in the darkness, offering love and wisdom, not through rules and conditions, but through the pure presence of love. To embrace Jesus in this way is to move past the layers of misunderstanding placed on him over time. It means going beyond religious rules and identities and seeing him for who he truly is. Christ is not just a person to be accepted or rejected. Christ is a way of being that anyone can experience. This is why Jesus continues to touch people's lives, even outside of religious circles. Many who do not consider themselves Christian still feel his presence. They experience his love, his guidance, and his light in moments of struggle. This is because Jesus' presence is not tied to a label or a belief system. It is about the universal truth of love itself, a truth that surpasses every human boundary. To understand Jesus as a universal force is to understand that love has no limits. It does not belong to one religion or one tradition. It does not need permission to exist. It simply is. It is always present, always available to those who are willing to receive it. This is the deeper truth of Christ, not as a religious icon, but as a living presence. A force that moves through the world and through the hearts of those who choose to embrace love. To live in this understanding is to step into a higher reality, one where love is the foundation. Fear has no control, and the divine is fully present within humanity. The true call of Jesus is not to worship, but to live by his example. The invitation is not to bow down, but to rise up. Salvation is not something to be found outside of us. It is something that already exists within. Jesus came to show this truth, not to be the only Son of God, but to show that we all are. Not to prove that only he was divine, but to remind us that divinity lives within all people. To reclaim Jesus is to reclaim ourselves. To remember who he is to remember who we are. And to live as he lived, to love as he loved, is to fulfill our true purpose. Love is all that matters. Everything else is an illusion. When we finally understand this, we will see that Christ was never outside of us, never separate. He was always here, waiting to be remembered. When we strip away religious traditions and rules, what remains is the core truth of Jesus' message. Love. Love is the highest power, the ultimate reality. It does not belong to any one group or belief system. It does not require effort to exist. It simply is. The only question is whether we are willing to receive it, to surrender to it, and to live by it. This is the real invitation of Jesus. Not to worship him from a distance, but to live as he lived, to love as he loved, to awaken to the truth that love is already within us, waiting to be remembered, waiting to be lived.